So, some new games came out this past week that I do plan to get, when it comes to my various systems. You know, I do plan to eventually get an Xbox Series X or S. There's no doubt about that. But there are some games that I do specifically want to get for the PS5 and the Switch. Those, of course, being Sonic Superstars, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Spider-Man 2. Now, a lot of people have already put, the latter pretty much on YouTube, along with the other games, but mostly the latter on YouTube. And out of the three, it feels like, Spider-Man 2, well, one video said it's kind of disappointing. And others, they're kind of mixed about it. And, some people don't like how Mary Jane, looks in looks in it and all that. Looks like she's older or whatever. But I think maybe, and I haven't played the game yet, but I think the reason being is it's not the gameplay. The gameplay is probably outstanding. There's no doubt. The gameplay is probably very good. It's the story. And I think the reason the story is the more underwhelming part of it is because we've been there, done that in Spider-Man. In fact, one of the more notable I guess you could say, versions of the story came from Disney's Ultimate Spider-Man series, the Disney Channel, Disney XD, Toon Disney, whatever you want to call it, Disney Plus, Ultimate Spider-Man series. I think that's the one it was, the Ultimate Spider-Man series. And, basically Spider-Man did like a Zach Morris, from Saved by the Bell. Well, he would basically narrate and talk, break the fourth wall, talk to the audience. And we had seen this before already. We had seen, this kind of story before already in that series. And I think maybe we had seen it more recently in the comics as well, something. And I think that's probably the one reason why the game might kind of get mixed reviews. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I think the gameplay, the boss fights, and all that, traveling, web slinging and all that. I think that's going to pretty much make up for any other disappointment. But when it comes to the story, I think it's the story that kind of brings it down because fans had already seen this. In fact, one of the more, I guess you could say, viewed scenes that people put here on YouTube under various titles is Venom converting MJ into Scream. That's right. Venom action. Now, here's what's interesting though. It's usually a part of the symbiote, an individual part that gets attached to somebody. It's not, Venom, infecting somebody. It's not him basically pulling, let's say, an hate plague kind of scenario where the infected infects somebody else. It's not that. It's not always that. It's always just, one bit of symbiont that gets loose and attaches itself to somebody and feeds off of them and kind of increases their anger or their emotions and stuff like that. And here you have basically Venom doing that. But it's not just Venom, courtesy of the symbiote. No. It's the person who's basically being influenced by Venom, and that being Harry Osborn, which is kind of a new wrinkle, I'll give it that. But outside of that, it's entirely a very similar story, and I think that's what brings it down. Because everybody that followed the Ultimate Spider-Man show and everything, and saw Mary Jane basically become Queen Carnage, knew she wasn't going to stay that way for long. They knew that. And yeah, the big change, big twist is because she was, basically, I guess you could say, enveloped so long in the symbiote that basically it caused her to, it caused part of the symbiote to become part of her DNA to where now all she has to do is shape her skin into whatever she needs it to be and she's good. And all she has to do is just concentrate and the suit comes out, for herself. But But the point is, despite those twists, people have seen this story before, and I think, in my opinion, just my opinion, I think that's the underwhelming part of it. I think that's why people feel it's a disappointment, because we've been there, done that with this story. I mean, even with the inclusion of Miles Morales, it's like, it's like, what else is new? We know what's going to happen. Mary Jane, a lot of people that, Peter Parker, Miles Morales are close with, are, have feelings for and all that, friends, family, they're going to get infected. Allies, they're going to get infected. No doubt about it. I mean, like I said, MJ, various clips out there of her being turned into Scream, are uploaded here on YouTube. One person basically says Venom swallows MJ, and it's like, what? Like, what do you mean swallows? He eats her? No, basically, he envelops her in the symbiote and turns her into Scream, pretty much. He cocoons her, and she gets, turned into Scream. So we know that. There's a guy, like I said, I haven't played the game yet, but I can almost assume you got Black Cat in there, so Black Cat could get affected. We don't know. The point is, we had seen this story done numerous times already. We had seen this, done numerous times already. And yeah, yes, this is a more darker take on it. There's no doubt. You do have characters die, from what I understand, possibly. But again, I think it's that story element of, we've seen it before. We know what the end result's going to be. No matter how much you change it, we've seen it before in other incarnations. And I think what made the first Spider-Man on PS4 good, I think what made that good in the eyes of a lot of folks, is it had an original story. Like there was some loose adaptation, some stories we've seen before, but it was its own original story almost. The gameplay was original. And then when you add in, Miles Morales as part of it, kind of do the spin-off game with Miles Morales, and then you do these two together, I think they did a spin-off game with Miles, or it was a DLC, I can't remember. But still, you add Miles Morales into it, as well, either in a spin-off or, a DLC or whatever, and then you bring them together here, it's like, it's like, okay, the first one was good because the story was original. Like, again, like I said, there were a few loose adaptations from iconic stories that we knew of. But here, it's like, yeah, the gameplay might be good, the boss fights might be good, but it's the same story. We know the characters are going to overcome. We know those that are infected by the symbiote are going to overcome. We know that. The friends, the allies, the family, we know that. And like I said, I think that's probably the one issue folks have with this. I think that's, in my opinion, again, I haven't played the game, but from what I can sense, out of the 3 major games released this week, only Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Sonic Superstars, they're the only ones being talked about as very good games, playable games. Things that have original, new concepts that people can get behind and enjoy. Well, Spider-Man 2 might have the good gameplay, great graphics and everything, but it's also basically the same kind of story we had seen before. It's very repetitive in that. And I think that's what, is very, I guess you could say, downtrodden about the game. I think that's what's very downtrodden about the game, in my opinion. Again, I'm just basing this on what I've seen and heard. I haven't played the game. And I know people might say, well, don't base your opinions on anything you hear from anybody else. And you have a right to tell me that. But I'm just going by what I'm seeing here. And what I'm trying to understand is, this is Spider-Man, a very popular IP. Why would you not like it? Why would you not like this game that's been hyped up? People have been wanting this for a while. They've been wanting it for a while, since the first one. They knew, and once they knew it was coming, they wanted to, ensure that it was going to be great. Because these people have done great work. And even though the gameplay might be good, despite, how the characters might look in the cutscenes and everything, the gameplay might be good, but it's the story. I think it's the repetitiveness of the story that we had seen adapted numerous times, if not most recently, in media with Ultimate Spider-Man, if you will. We had seen this numerous times that I think people are like, in my opinion, people are like, that's the only thing that brings it down. That's the only thing that brings it down significantly, and that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. So, to me, I think honestly, if the story in the game, was a little bit more different, like, you could do the symbiont deal. But if it was just a little bit more different, to where it felt original, just like the first one, or mostly original, I think fans would be more receptive of it. Again, they're probably going to enjoy the gameplay, the boss fights, and all that, the graphics, overall, with a few, design choices here and there. But in my opinion, I think it's the story. And if the story was just a little bit more original, that might be a game changer maybe for them. That might be a game changer. Not saying it would be. I mean, heck, if you wanted to, you could. I mean, and I'm kind of surprised Marvel never went down this route. Well, I think they did briefly, in the comics, but it was only temporary, like a short, brief deal, because they didn't have no host and all that. But I'm kind of surprised they didn't do this with the host of the symbiotes. And I think if Marvel was to go down this route especially with this game, then I think you'd have people saying, "Hey, this is a good game overall. Gameplay, boss fights, graphics, story, it's all good." And I think that would be the merging, the fusion, if you will. And again, they had done this before in the comics, where the symbionts without a host would gather together into one, like one big blob, like they don't know what to do without a host. But I think if you were to add the addition of them, with a host, like, Harry with Venom, MJ with, as Scream and so on, and then said, okay, for Peter Parker and Miles Morales' final boss fight, we're going to have all the hosted symbionts come together and merge into one. Basically have the symbionts, attached to the host so tightly and, or so strongly that they cause the host to start to become part of the substance itself, that it allows them to become so malleable, if you will, that they are able to, turn them temporarily into a fluid that merges into one. I mean, if you do something like that, in the story, to me, that gets people talking. To where it's like, okay, I didn't see that coming, let's see how this plays out. And I think, again, that would have probably helped the story out. Maybe, in my opinion. Maybe. But I can't say. I can't really say. So, I can't really say. But if I'm Sony, and I'm Insomniac Games, I think there's the people behind this. If I want to do a DLC boss battle for the future of the game, I consider doing something like that. Have the infected symbiote hosted people come together with the symbiote, infected Harry Osborn Venom, if you will. Have them come together and merge. You do that, you'll probably have something people will talk about. But I could be wrong. But again, in my opinion, yes, I am basing this off what I'm hearing. You can have your own opinions too. But from what I'm hearing, from what I'm understanding, not a lot of people are thrilled with the story because we've seen it before. The gameplay, boss fights, everything else is good with a few exceptions on character designs here and there. But outside of that, it's the story, I think, from what I'm seeing, that people overwhelmingly are not happy with. But let me know what your thoughts are. Give me your opinions down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me or not? And until then, I am out.